God, I've just read the warning on it. I can't believe I'm so invested in a romance series where the love interests are cutlery. I knew there was something about Greg. Hello, my loves. I just had a phone call that made me genuinely very angry, and I'm just feeling annoyed, frustrated, just not in a good mood. So do you know what would make me feel better? Reading a light-hearted utensil romance series. That's right, I'm finally reading Forked. I've been saving it for a time when it was needed, and today is that time. I've got a whole day off. I don't have any plans, I don't have anything to do. I'm not gonna overestimate myself here and say that I will be able to finish all 4 books today. They're not that long, but I'm gonna be realistic here. I will try and finish all of them today, but it's probably not gonna happen. We are gonna read all of them in this video though. So if you've seen this series and you're not sure about reading it, or you kind of always thought, that's a bit weird, but you wanna know what actually happens, I got you, don't worry, we're gonna read it together. Obviously there will be spoilers throughout this for the entire utensil romance series, so if you do want to read it yourself, maybe come back to this after. Let's have a look at the summary or the description for the first one. This is a 4-book light-hearted utensil romance series by Ruth Cardello. First book is Forked. It is 172 pages long. It has an average of 3.5 stars on Goodreads. God, I've just read the warning on it. Imagine a World War II super soldier and his unit were trapped in cutlery by the government, and the only way they could transform back was being intimate with a woman. Shortly after moving to a new city, Mercedes buys a set of antique silverware from an estate sale and discovers she has a preference for one particular fork. Is the man who appears when the fork disappears real or a salacious fantasy? If he is real, is he crazy, or could he actually be what he claims to be? Are you open-minded enough to accept him as he is and fall in love with a fork? Find out how far Mercedes is willing to go to save him and his friends in Spooned and Knifed. And then there's a caution. The spicy scenes in this novella are purely fictional. Please do not attempt to reenact any of them at home. I do not want to hear that my readers FAFO. Forked around and found out. Tines hurt. What are tines? Are they the spikes on a fork? Let's keep the forks on the table where they belong. What the fuck is this? Okay, I'd honestly never intended to read this series before I heard from my sibling vaguely what it was about. A World War II super soldier. Who does that remind you of? My main boy, Captain America, right? So this is Captain America in a fork? If you have already read this series, I would love to know your thoughts and opinions on it. If you liked it, if you are now a utensil romance lover. I'm just gonna get into it. It is pretty early still. It is 11 o'clock-ish, so I've got the whole day. We're a few pages in. Our main character, Mercedes, I'm already getting secondhand embarrassment from her. She's in the lift in her building, right? There's this guy who she's really taken notice of how often he's in the lift with her. She fancies him. She decides today's the day. She's finally gonna ask him out. So she says that she's noticed him riding his bike and was wondering if he would wanna go for a ride with her tomorrow. And he's like, sure. So she keeps going. I was like, yeah, would tomorrow be okay? Sounds good. And then he's like, listen, I'm in a lift and not alone, so let's bang out the details via email. Sure, sounds good. I'll have that to you by Monday. It was on a fucking phone call, and she's just had a full conversation with him, thinking he's just agreed to go on a date with her. Embarrassed for her already. It's okay though, because he didn't hear her, and when he asks if she said anything, she's just like, nope, didn't say anything at all. Oh, she's just made it worse for herself. And then she was like, no, I didn't say anything. And he's like, you sure? Are you okay? Because she's embarrassed. So she says she has some of his mail that got delivered to her by accident. And he's like, oh, do you want to drop it off? That's so nice of you. She doesn't have any of his mail. She just lied. So she's like, now I need to steal some of his mail. Also, we're getting, like, there's a name at the beginning of every chapter and, like, the date. So I'm assuming we're gonna get points of view from the fork at some point. She has a cat, but she's not allowed to have cats in her building. So she's put on her lease that she lives with a 25-year-old grad student called Mike. Why would you make up a whole person on a lease when you could just say you live on your own and not tell them about the cat? We have our first fork interaction. It's very small, but it's our first fork interaction. She's at home. She's about to make dinner. On my way to the table, I stop and retrieve my favorite fork from the dish rack behind the sink. I have an entire case of silverware and have never cared much about which utensil I use, but there's something special about this fork. It's old-fashioned and sterling silver, perfectly weighted with solid tines that feel good in my mouth. That's a man. That's a man. So Mercedes has literally no friends, so she's having a full conversation with her cat in like quite a strange way. Anyway, she's talking to her cat and she's overthinking the whole thing with Greg, the guy from the lift, and she's saying how she needs to steal some mail. And then she starts getting worried that he might be allergic to cats, and she's like, no, I can't do this. I refuse to overthink myself into another year of virginity. The fork is now moving. The fork starts vibrating in her hand, and then she thinks she's just worried. She puts it down, and then it's moving on the table. Nothing else in the room is moving, just the fork. Is it about to turn into a man? Her cat knocked it off the table, the fork, and she can't find it anywhere, and she goes to look for it, and there's a pair of well-polished leather shoes there instead. Is it turned into a man? He's turned into a man. The fork has turned into a man. Is he blonde? I just want to know if he's blonde. Is he Captain America? He turned into a man. Tall, very attractive man who is wearing full outdated military wear. She thinks there was an earthquake and that's why the fork was moving, or maybe she's dead, or maybe she's just passed out and she's just imagining this man. So she's just kind of going through a whole spiral while he's trying to ask her what year it is. Eventually she tells him, we're now getting a chapter from his point of view back in 1945. Are we about to find out how he became a fork? Okay, this guy is not Captain America, because he says, everything I did was by direct order and with the goal of world peace. Yes, Steve Rogers did do everything with the goal of peace. However, he did not do things by direct order. He just did the right thing. So this is not Steve Rogers, unfortunately. I'm going to continue to imagine him as Steve Rogers, though, because why not? Okay, so Fork Dude, whose name I think is Hugh, he was part of like a special operation in the Second World War with all of these other guys who they've been turned into super soldiers. We're not really explicitly told that yet, or like how or what happened with that, what powers they have, but that's what's been alluded to, and obviously what it says on the back. So they're part of this like secret super soldier program, and their job was to stop Nazi scientists creating an atomic bomb. So they were like kidnapping a load of scientists to prevent that happening. It's the end of the war. Germany has surrendered. They're like supposed to be celebrating, and they're like at this meal where Director Falcon is saying like, basically, well done, and one day your part in all of this won't be secret anymore and you'll be able to be heroes. But obviously I can't tell anyone yet about this, but they've all got like their medals and stuff. They are being recognized, but in like a low-key secret way. And then they're all talking about how they're gonna try and like sneak out and celebrate, maybe go drink, see some women, and then there's just a flash of white, which I'm assuming is when they were all turned into cutlery. Because he's like, there was a flash and then nothing. Then we come back to 2024. He says, nothing, that is, until the first time I felt her touch. Something warm and comforting. Oh. Still as a fork, aware of her. So he must have just been like in a box somewhere for ages. I don't really know. That's like his backstory there. And now he's just been a fork for, what's that, 80 years? Until she finds him and starts using him as a fork. He doesn't know he's a fork. He doesn't know what's happened. He's just aware of her because obviously she's been using him as a fork. This is fucking ridiculous. But he's like, he doesn't understand what's going on, but he feels like very drawn to her. So he kisses her and she's like, she's now convinced this is a dream. and like he's just some figment of her imagination. No, first she's convinced that she's hallucinating, so she starts googling things. He's then like, what is that? Because he's from the 40s. They didn't have iPhones then. And so she's explaining it to him, and he's trying to search things about himself and the war and his friends, and he doesn't understand technology very well, and it's quite funny, honestly. But there's like nothing. There's no mention of the secret project that they did called Project Inkwell that was, you know, like they were saying, one day everyone will know about this. No one knows about it. There's no results about Project Inkwell or his like involvement in any of it. Nothing comes up when he searches any of his friends who also worked with him. And then he starts questioning like, how do I know you? How are you involved in this? She's like, I've never met you before. I don't know what's happening. You just appeared. And then through their conversation, they realize he was the fork. They then look at the box of cutlery and it says Inkwell on it. It's the same box of cutlery that they used at the celebration meal for when the war was over back in the 40s. I'm assuming the rest of his friends are different cutlery, especially based on the names of the rest of these books. But we don't know that yet. He's just starting to piece things together. She's still convinced she's dreaming or hallucinating. They're gonna start investigating, I suppose. Our next chapter is another flashback to 1941. I need to eat something because I'm very hungry, but this is incredibly silly and it is quite funny. It is ridiculous in a way that I can tell this is not supposed to be serious, obviously, because it's a light-hearted utensil romance. We've had another 2 flashback chapters. What's his name? Hugh, aka Steve Rogers. This program for like the super soldiers, all of the people who then go onto it are people who weren't able to enlist in other ways. So he was deemed medically unfit because he doesn't have a finger, which then magically grows back after the super soldier serum. So he wasn't allowed to enlist. He gets this mysterious leaflet, goes to the place, and he gets into the super soldier program. There's another guy who's like his best friend, so we're gonna call him Bucky. I think his name's Jack. Was blind. I don't know if he now can see from the serum, but we know that he was blind. But they're like good friends, and they are like the 2 best fighters together. The process of becoming a super soldier sounds rough. They're giving a serum. I wonder if it was blue. They're given a serum every week. Some people just like die straight away from it. It just doesn't work for them. Then the rest of them obviously like continue getting the serum, get stronger, there's cellular change, all of that. Most of them are okay. Some of them it just doesn't gel with at that point, and then they die slowly and horribly. They're also given supplements to keep them like awake longer and be able to concentrate more, but for some reason all of the ones that have still survived just decide to throw these out. I'm not really sure why. They're doing all their combat training. We see a bit where a main guy, Hugh, Steve, and his friend Jack are like working together in their combat training to like defeat the whole rest of their team. There's like 14 other people that they are able to defeat. We're now going back to the present day to see what's going on there. I know this is supposed to be silly, lighthearted, whatever, but he's from the 1940s. He's been a fork for 80 years. He doesn't understand what's going on in 2024. I'd imagine his brain is still very much stuck in that ceremony and what happened to his friends, whether his friends are alive or not. And yeah, he's just flirting with Mercedes. Like, dude, have some priorities. Steve, I was about to say Steve would never. We all know Steve fucking would. He left his best friend to go back for a girl he kissed once. So actually, maybe this guy is Steve Rogers. Their conversations are literally all over the place. And I think partly that's because she is still convinced that he's a hallucination and she's just imagining him and none of this is really happening. But we've basically come to an agreement between them where he'll help her be more confident and get Greg, the guy from the lift at the beginning, if she helps him find his friends, because she understands technology and the current world, like the time that they're in. So they've kind of almost got like a little deal. This book is hilarious. It is so silly. Right, so what's her name? Mercedes is still convinced this is a dream. She's just kind of saying whatever. She's being very honest, which would normally annoy me, but because she thinks it's a dream, I'm gonna let her off. So they'd agreed they were gonna work together. So I was like, right, okay, we're finally gonna get into what's going on here with these super soldiers becoming cutlery. Then they just start flirting again. Then they watch a film together. They're just having like very bizarre but somewhat normal conversations. Like as normal as they can be, given that one person here thinks this is a dream and the other person here, super soldier from World War II who's been a fork for 80 years. Right? As normal as a conversation between two people that can be. Her cat like scratches at him. She's like, sorry he hasn't met many people. And Hugh the fork is like, I know what his problem is with me. He knows I was the fork. And Mercedes is like, you were what? Your favourite fork? I can't explain how or why I was in that silverware, but it's why we don't feel like strangers. I've been in your mouth so many times. It's so funny. That genuinely made me laugh so much that my dog had to come check I was okay because he thought I was crying. He then goes on to be like, no, because she doesn't believe him. He goes on to be like, no, this is real. 1945, I was at an award dinner with my unit. Something happened that night that I thought ended all our lives, but it didn't. It put me in that box and kept me in some kind of suspended animation until you set me free. From being silverware? Yes. As my fork? I don't really know how she knows this, because I don't think he's mentioned it. But then she just asks, were you part of a government secret super soldier program? I don't think he's mentioned that, so I don't know how she's just guessed that out of nowhere. He says he was, and she says, and you joined it because it was the only way you could serve in World War II? To which he says yes. And then she says, so your origin story is the same as Captain America? She still thinks it's a dream though. Even though he's just said all of that, she still thinks it's a dream. I think she may now be realising that this is not a dream. The way he's looking at me, like I'm important to him, has me all kinds of confused. I would love this to be true. Really? Because if one of my forks came to life, I don't think I'd be very happy about that. Why would you want that to be true? He's convinced her it's not a dream. After saying she's gonna call the police and or hit him, she has agreed to help him. So she's gone and got her laptop so they can start searching what might have happened to him and the rest of his unit. She's obviously having to teach him a lot about technology, because it's advanced a lot in the 80 years he's been a fork. The first thing he Googles once she's explained it to him is, could a magnetic blast turn someone into silverware? Every so often you feel like this story is somewhat normal, where they're just having a normal conversation. They're just talking about driving to access some records that have been declassified since the past 80 years because they couldn't access them online, and they start talking about the guy upstairs again, and you know, things seem quite normal. You think, yeah, this is just a guy and a girl having a chat, and then there's lines like, there's just something about a fork questioning my dating practices that tickles my sense of humour. It tickles mine too. Refill update, nothing really has happened. They were gonna go like in the library or archives or something to find this information that's been declassified now. They then just went shopping because they decided he needed more modern clothes to be able to do that. He made her buy a load of dresses as well. They went to get some food, like just normal shit. They're not really doing anything to try to find out more about why he was a fork and if the rest of his friends are all silverware as well. Upstairs man, right? You remember the whole thing at the beginning, how she'd said to him that she'd had some of his mail delivered and she needed to bring it back, and he was like, yeah, totally, bring it back. He seemed really keen about it, actually. She just never did. So they're on their way back from food shopping, and Hugh Forkman knows about this, right? So the post person is there as they walk in, So Fork Dude pretends to be Lift Man and gets the mail so she can give it to him. He, after this, is then really grumpy all of a sudden. Complete switch in his mood. He's really angry after helping her get this mail. They then, when they get to her apartment, who's there waiting at the door? Lift Man. He's come to get the mail and she's like, oh, so funny, I have it right here. But then she has a load of heavy shopping bags, so he's like, oh, I'll help you with those, and carries them in. All three of them are in her apartment. Lift Man is then like, are you two like together? And Forkman is like, if you're trying to ask if she's single, yeah, she is. And he's in a really bad mood. He's really, really grumpy all of a sudden, even though he's had a really nice time out shopping with her. So obviously he's jealous. Very, very obviously he is jealous. She then just says bye to Greg. She's like, thanks, okay, bye. Because she's like, I don't even want to steal the mail anymore. Greg stopped mattering to me as soon as my favorite fork turned into a man. But she doesn't tell him any of this, and he's like, I need a walk. I'm a man from the 40s. I can't talk about my feelings. I'm not upset. What are you talking about? And then he just leaves. He's just walking around at the moment. And genuinely what's so funny about this book is that, like, obviously there's a lot of... He mentions a lot of serious things in his point of view in terms of, like, friends being killed in the war, not being able to stop the bomb being created. Like, he mentions all of this. But then he'll just say things like... He's having a fucking pity parade for himself. And he's like, I'm not the soldier who should have been revived, brought back, woken. Edward was always smarter than I was. Edward's not relevant. We don't really know anything about Edward, so don't worry if you don't know who that is. He's just one of the other super soldiers. Edward was always smarter than I was. He would have already figured out what happened to us by now. He wouldn't still be wondering if any of the unit is also in that silverware. It'll be like serious things. Like, yeah, he's being a right Debbie Downer just because she fancies this guy that she's known for months. You've been a fork who she's used for a very long time, but she didn't fucking know you were a fork. You only met her yesterday. Calm down, mate. 'Cause he's like really going in on himself, like, I'm not helping anyone, this is awful, I've seen people die, I didn't stop things. He would have known if we were silverware. Just the juxtaposition of the really seriousness and then just the reminder that up until yesterday he was a fork. Okay, so now he's in a fight with some people, right? He was walking past a bar, this woman comes out and she's like saying no to this drunk guy who's like following her, and of course Mr. Fork steps in because he's moral and does the right thing, God bless him. And he's like, she said no, leave her alone. This drunk guy's friends come out and they're like gearing for a fight. He breaks this man's arm, even though he's just said, like, well, he said he didn't want to kill them, but he's like, I've seen too much war and death, and then just casually breaks the guy's arm and is like really happy about it. And then, my time as a fork hasn't diminished my abilities. So after that whole thing of him being like, I just don't help anyone. I'm the worst. I've seen too much war and too much hurt. I don't want to hurt people anymore. He breaks that guy's arm that I mentioned before. He shatters someone else's shoulder, and I can't remember what he does to... I don't think he does anything to the third guy. It's just the first two guys, right? He does all of that. Then someone comes over and is like, wow, you know how to fight. Do you want to be part of this illegal fight club? You'll get paid. And he's like, sure, because he wants to pay Mercedes back because he feels bad that he's the man and he hasn't paid for anything. So he's like, yeah, I'll just take part in this fight club. He wins all the fights, and then when he goes to collect his money, they try and not pay him everything. So he literally beats up a room of like 7 people. Again, breaking multiple bones. They're not super soldiers, mate. They can't heal that quickly. You've seriously injured all of these people after being like, I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. Also, we're back with Mercedes now. She seems to be having a conversation with her cat again, where she's trying to work out whether she wants to go for Greg or what's his name? Forkman? Hugh. She's like doing pros and cons from the looks of it, of who she wants to be with. Oh, also, I feel like it should be relevant to add at this point. I forgot to say it earlier. Hugh has said, although he finds Mercedes very attractive, he doesn't think it will be a good idea for them to get together because he's so physically strong. He's worried he will hurt her if they become intimate together. So she's like debating the pros and cons of them, even though technically she can't be with Forkman because he is so strong that he may kill her. Based on what he's done to all of these other people, he actually might. But he was trying to hurt them. This is just feeling very Edward Cullen, honestly, at the moment, of like, I might hurt you, we can't do anything. That kind of vibe. I think he's just voluntarily turned back into a fork. They had that big argument, yeah. He went out and did some fights. Then she's like sat at home talking to her cat. She ultimately decides that Hugh is the right choice. She actually goes on a whole thing where she's like, I didn't see him transform from a fork to a man though. So maybe he's just a random man who walked into my house and thinks he's a soldier who was turned into a fork. But I don't care. I want him. So she's like, right, I'm gonna make it all romantic. I'm gonna cook steak. She then decides she's gonna go to the pharmacy, but I don't know why. To get sex supplies is what she says. She was gonna go to the pharmacy, then she was gonna go buy some like fancy underwear. So she pops out, but as she's going out, Greg's at the door, lift man, and he's come to thank her for returning the mail, and he gives her some flowers. So they have a bit of an awkward interaction, but he seems quite nice and quite chill about it. So he's like, okay, cool, don't worry. Hugh, Forkman, returns. He sees the table set for two and he's like, oh, has she forgiven me already? Then he sees the flowers from Greg and he's like, is all of this for me or for Greg? And then he goes on another pity party. And he goes and looks at the silverware and he's thinking about if his friends are in there or not. And he thinks about how they thought they were helping everyone, but maybe they weren't. They did a lot of shit to try and prevent the bomb being created, but really it still just ended up with it being created and being used. So maybe his friends should just stay as cutlery and maybe he should too. And then he says, I thought I was a hero, but in reality I was most useful as a fork. That last thought echoes through me as everything goes dark and cold again. I'm no one and nowhere, but this time I go there certain I deserve it. So I think he's just chosen to turn back into a fork. So she's gonna come home. Oh, this is classic. This is a classic rom-com. She's gonna come home with her sexy underwear and her supplies from the pharmacy, and she's gonna be cooking steak, expecting him to come, and he's never gonna, because he's turned back into a fork. Because she's bought all plastic cutlery now, so they don't eat using his friends, if his friends are also cutlery. So she's gonna use the plastic stuff. She might not even look and she's gonna think he's disappeared. What the fuck? Okay, so that did happen. Went to the shop, she got all her supplies, she bought some makeup, she came home, had an everything shower, made herself look great, cooked the steak, saw the money and was like, oh my god, that's so sweet of him that he's paid me back. I think I forgot to mention that he left the money on the side. He left the money on the side before he turned himself back into a fork. She doesn't think about like, why did he leave it there and just leave again? But anyway, she's like, that's so sweet that he left that there. I thought he was angry at me. Obviously he's not. She makes the steak, she waits, he obviously doesn't turn up. She falls asleep waiting for him to come back. And then the next chapter is 2 months later. We're 70% through now. I feel like this whole what's happening to the super soldiers and are they all cutlery thing is going to be in the other books. I don't think we're really going to get too much of a resolution of that in this one, but she's found the fork. Important to note, she now does not believe he was really a fork. She thinks he just was maybe slightly delusional and thought he was a soldier who had been a fork for 80 years and was not actually a fork, but she wants him to come back still. She's hoping he'll come back eventually. She seems very well adjusted actually, and when I say well adjusted, maybe she's not. I think maybe there's a few things wrong with our girl Mercedes, because she just accepts everything and is fine with it and is just chill. Like, yeah, she genuinely thinks Hugh essentially broke into her apartment one day thought he was a soldier from World War II who had been turned into a fork. Spent like 2 days with her and then left, and she's like, yeah, I still want him to come back. Like, maybe she's not very well adjusted, but she seems to be thriving. Anyway, she's made a new friend, another girl in her apartment, whose name I don't remember, and they go jogging together. This woman seems very into manifesting and intuition and stuff like that. She was looking at the silverware just before they were going for a jog, and she dropped one of the spoons. The spoon goes under the fridge, and she goes to get it, and she also finds the fork. So obviously he turned back into a fork and fell under the fridge. Because she doesn't believe he was actually a fork anymore, she thinks it's just like a sign that she's found it again. Hopefully it means he'll come back. She doesn't actually realise that's him, but she's just fucking put it in her pocket to take the fork with her on a run because she's so happy to be reunited with this fork. So she's found him, but she doesn't realise it's actually him because she thinks he's just delusional. She's starting to figure it out. Although I never saw the fork become Hugh, I also never saw Hugh and the fork at the same time. It's so silly. It's so silly. She's also now got friends because she's hanging out with the woman from her apartment that she goes jogging with, and also she's been hanging out with Greg, the lift guy, more. They're not seeing each other, they're just friends, and he like invited her to hang out with all of his friends, and she started telling them about Project Inkwell, but she said it was like an uncle who told her about it, so she's kind of lying a little bit. So she's kind of researching. She still wants Hugh to come back, and she's beginning to think that maybe he's the fork. She's like, everything just tastes so much better with this fork. Maybe it is Hugh. Oh, also, she noticed that the fork had like damage or marks on the back of it, which is relevant because Hugh has a load of scars on his back from like, I think it was a mine. Like when they were on a mission, one of his friends stepped on a mine and it like shredded his back. But obviously he's a super soldier, so he recovered. The friend died. And he said something about like deeper wounds, they'll heal, but they still leave a mark or something. And the fork has like the same marks on it. And then she also noticed that a lot of the other utensils have like marks like that as well, which could suggest they're the scars of his super soldier friends. Jesus, we have just turned up. The suddenness with which, in general, this book flips between like being pretty chill, them just talking about things, to like suddenly flirting before and like now. The flip between her just thinking like, what if this fork is Hugh? To now she's like really turned on. Just having a bit of fun alone time, not with the fork, but just a bit of fun alone time. It's just very sudden. It's quite jarring, honestly, how much it just flips. Oh, also while she's doing this, she just felt the fork move and she's holding it. She's not doing anything, she's holding it. So she did that. And now Hugh's here, all of a sudden. She just finished, she was relaxing, pretty happy with herself. He's transformed, he's no longer the fork, he's back. Oh man, we are straight in. Okay. He came back, he's no longer a fork. She still doesn't think he was a fork. She still is on her belief that he's unwell and delusional and just thinks he was a fork. Regardless, she doesn't really seem to care that he could have just been lying and broke into her apartment before, and she's just like, yeah, let's just do this anyway. So they've just had spicy time. Now they're just talking again. And he's like, I'm sorry I left the way I did. I didn't know I could. And when I did, I didn't know how to get back. She's like, where did you go? He just goes, Mercedes, I was a fork again. If you don't believe I'm a fork, does that mean you also don't believe that I served in World War II? If I try to prove to you that I really am sometimes a fork, will you promise me something? He was like, oh god, he really thinks he can turn into a fork. What will he do when he realizes he can't? She just saw him turn into a fork. This book is ridiculous. We finished forks. Not really much happened at the end, to be honest. They still don't really know what's going on. The funniest part is that he still just randomly turns into a fork sometimes. It seems like usually it's when he's annoyed or upset. He'll just turn into a fork. Like, they'll be having an argument and then he just turns into a fork. But also it seems like he can to a degree control when he turns into a fork, because there was this whole bit that she said they were like at dinner and the waiter was being really slow and he'd walked off and he hadn't brought them any silverware, so she just kind of like looked at him and he just turned into a fork so she could still eat. It seems like he can control when he turns into a fork, but he can't control when he turns back. And in order for him to turn back, she has to be intimate with the fork. Like, what? That's like the only way he'll come back. So they're still trying to figure that out. They're still looking into the rest of his unit and whether they are also utensils. But given what they know about him turning into a human, maybe we need to do that with the other utensils. And he's like, no, absolutely not, are you doing that? So there's a hint that one of her friends who's researching it might come into that in the next book, because her friends are still looking into the Inkwell project. That's pretty much where we are at the end. They're happy, they're together. Sometimes he's a fork, sometimes he's not. We're gonna go on to Spoon. This is incredibly silly, incredibly silly, but I'm actually having a really good time. This is really funny, silly in the way exactly that I needed today. Okay, my food is cooking, so we're gonna get started on Spooned while we wait for it to cook. Let's look at the blurb for this one. So this one has an average of 3.9 stars, so this one's gone up. When a World War II super soldier trapped in cutlery discovers he can transform back into being a man by being intimate with a woman, he seeks to free the rest of his unit via some unconventional matchmaking. But how do you find a woman willing to take a chance on a spoon? Cheryl isn't prepared to hear her friend is getting it on with a fork, or that her friend's hot fiance is the result. What? Okay. Cheryl wants nothing to do with their cutlery kink until she holds the spoon for the first time and it feels meant to be. The dating pool has proved unsatisfying. Battery-operated devices don't cuddle you afterwards. Your friend claims a kind-hearted, huge super soldier is trapped in your spoon and only you can free him. Wouldn't you give it a try? Just once, just to make sure. It sounds like we're being just as silly. I'll be interested to see the differences here, like, because we can't just have the exact same story again. There must be some development in terms of, like, the unit and the super soldiers. There's going to be a reunion between whatever soldier this is and Hugh. I'm hoping it's Jack, because Jack seems to be his closest friend, or it might be the one they mentioned before, Edward, who's like really clever. I'm looking forward to some more light-hearted utensil romances. I'm not very far in. I'm like 7% of the way in, which is probably like 7 pages in. But things to know about Cheryl so far. She's very intelligent, very clever. She was saying about how like she could have tested early out of high school and gone on to like college and just been like a genius essentially. She didn't do any of that. She just stopped uni at her master's and didn't continue any further study. Currently working as a research analyst, and she's quite happy like this. She's hanging out with Greg at the moment, lift man, because they're friends, and she's saying she's had like a bit of a weird day. She went over to Mercedes and Hughes and she's concerned that Mercedes might not be that mentally well because of the things they said. So it sounds as if they kind of explained everything to her. We haven't seen the conversation. She hasn't said what they said. However, she's talking about how they were saying like she's single, she's been single for a while, she's on her own, and Greg's like, there's nothing wrong with that, it's fine to be single or alone. And then she is like, he doesn't understand, how could he? I have a spoon in my purse. The Mercedes and Hugh tried to convince me harbors a World War II super soldier. It's in my purse and I can't stop thinking about it. They clearly have explained everything to her. She has a spoon. I can't wait to see which super soldier it is. It's Jack. It's Jack. We're getting a flashback chapter. 1941. Jack's point of view. Okay, I'm already 20% through, or like more than 20% through. Briefly what's happened so far, because otherwise I'll forget. Jack was the one I'd forgotten. He was born blind. He does not like his dad. His dad is an asshole. When he discovered that Jack had been born blind, he was like, okay, I don't have a son. He just like disowned him. His mum seems pretty awesome though. They've also got like a housekeeper man. I don't really know what he is. I'm imagining him like oh fuck, what's his name? Alfred from Batman. Like that kind of, he's not a butler, but you know what I mean? Called Farley, and he's He's basically stand-in dad for Jack. They then also had another son who Jack's dad is fine with because he can see. Jack's dad and brother had gone off to fight. Jack couldn't because he is blind, and then he gets the same flyer that Hugh did to go to this like mysterious place. He enlists in the super soldier program, manages to see his mum and Farley before they like ship out properly. So he's gone through the whole super soldier thing. He can see them now, so he just wanted to see his mum's face one time before he like went out, because he knew he might not come back, and also they would stage him being dead because it's like, you know, top secret. So he just wanted to see them and let them know he's not actually dead before he goes. That is all we know about Jack so far. Meanwhile, Cheryl, had her weird conversation with Mercedes and Hugh. She then went to a bar to try and like just find a guy to hook up with. She ended up getting drugged. Luckily, nothing bad happened to her. She like noticed, said something, the guy ran, and then the bouncer made sure she got home okay. So she's home, like, out of her mind. She's vomited everywhere. She can't remember whether she showered or not. She's just not in the right headspace, obviously, because she's just ingested drugs. She remembers the spoon that they gave her, and she goes and she's just talking to it for ages. She falls asleep next to it, but then the next day she kind of wakes up, comes to her senses, and is like, look, I'm going to report this to police, which she does. The getting drugged part, not the spoon thing. And then she's like, I'm just gonna go and give them this spoon back. I'm just gonna tell them that I'm not into this weird cutlery kink that they're into. She does. He was like, look, we just need to show her. She doesn't believe her. He turns into a fork. She's like, they must be magicians. Like, cool trick, but I still don't believe that's a fork. I don't believe they're super soldiers. Just take your spoon back. Mercedes is then like, wait, there's no marks on this spoon, because if you remember correctly, Hugh's fork had all the marks on the back, like the scars on his back, and she'd seen that some of the other cutlery also had marks on them, and she's like, wait, this one doesn't have any marks on, so there might not be anyone inside it. Let me go look at all the other cutlery. There's more than 12 pieces of cutlery. There's 12 super soldiers. So she separates them out. She picks a spoon that has a marks on it. It's like 2 dots on the front. She's like, look, it must be Jack's eyes. Also, he lost a leg at one point, and there's like a big line there, but that was after he became a super soldier, so the leg grew back. She's like, I think this one's Jack. Here's some details about Jack. He's really nice. Try this spoon and see if you get on better with this one. Basically, Mercedes manages to convince her by saying like, look, just hold this spoon, and if you don't feel anything, I will never bring this up ever again. Cheryl's like, fine. She holds the spoon, and immediately she's like, I was always meant to have this spoon. This spoon is mine. Mercedes is like, see? So maybe you could help him come out. She's told him the whole thing of like, they can only transform back into men after intimacy with the utensil. Ignore my air fryer beeping if you can hear it. And Cheryl's like, no, I'm not doing that. To which Mercedes is like, okay, give the spoon back then. And she's like, no, my spoon now. So clearly she's felt something here. Clearly this is her spoon. Jack's her guy. She takes the spoon home. She washes him. She gives him a little bath. And then she leaves him on the side and decides she's gonna apply for a job that her mom told her about. So she's kind of accepting the spoon, but still kind of not. And she still doesn't believe in the whole super soldier thing. She just knows that she really likes this spoon. I'm gonna eat and then read some more. 2 quick things. 1, I ate way too much and I am so full. 2, when I was getting a fork out to eat with, for a moment I genuinely was like, I don't want to use this, because what if there's a man trapped inside it, and I don't want a man in my fork. Anyway, got over that 8, all good. I'm now nearly like 40% through. We had a brief chapter from Jack's point of view where he was like, he's been awoken, but he's still a spoon. Like, he's aware that she's there and loving all of this attention, but he's still aware he's a spoon, and he feels very trapped. He's not aware he's a spoon. He doesn't know where he is or what's happening. This isn't super relevant, but I'm gonna mention it because I think this friend that Cheryl is talking to, this character, is probably going to be the main character in the next book. Cheryl is now out for breakfast with a friend, and she's, I can't remember what this friend is called. Ashley. Her friend's name is Ashley. They're basically just talking generally about their lives and their relationships. Ashley's with this guy called Leo, who she used to be friends with, but she's not really sure if she wants to be with him or not. Cheryl then explains everything that Mercedes and Hugh told her, even though she said she wasn't going to tell anyone, and she started telling Greg, and then she's also told Ashley now. So this girl is not very good at keeping secrets. Ashley just thinks it's really funny, and she's like, yeah, that's insane. She tells her all of that, and then she's like, but like, just out of interest, if it was you and you had this spoon and there was a possibility that there was a man inside it and like you could get him out, would you? Ashley thinks she's joking and is then just basically trying to give her some good advice. But the reason I think she's going to be the next character in the next book is because she's really not sure about her and Leo, and she says like, I'm just not sure he's for me, he doesn't get my sense of humor. And then Cheryl says, yeah, like you need someone like a little bit sharper, or like with a sharp tongue like you. And then Ashley says something like, yeah, if you turn up at my door with a knife. And the next book, I'm pretty sure, is knifed. So I think Ashley's going to be the character in the next one. It seems like Cheryl is maybe considering things with her spoon to see if she can get a man out. He's here. Oh my god, she did it. He's here. He's obviously confused because, okay, from what I understand, they're like vaguely aware of things when they're silverware, but they're also not. Like, I don't think he can necessarily hear what she's saying or anything. He was aware of a presence and liking her and wanting to feel her presence more when he was a spoon. But he's confused and doesn't know where he is. She's like, what would you want to know if you reappeared 80 years in the future? And this is what she said was we're in my apartment. The year is 2024. You were accidentally turned into silverware and I just freed you from that. Also, by the way, she is completely naked. He's just appeared in full military outfit, not knowing what's going on or where he is in her bed. Just so you have the scene fully here. She's still very attracted to him. She's very turned on. He's really sad. He's just obviously found out it's 2024 and he's like, I've been gone for 80 years. Everyone I love is gone, aren't they? My friends, my mother, Farley. I promised I'd go back to them. I gave them my word. His voice is raw. They died not knowing what happened to me, probably waiting for me to return. She says, I'm sorry. And then poof, just like that, he's gone. Every time they feel sad or angry, any kind of negative emotion, it seems, being negative about themselves, or yeah, they're angry, they just turn back into their utensil. I can't remember where I last updated. The first time he disappeared twice, right? So she then managed to get him back. And then she was like explaining what had happened since, and like the same thing that what's her name, Mercedes had to explain to Hugh about the bombs that America used against Japan in the war. He's really upset about that because their whole thing was like trying to prevent the atomic bomb, and then he's basically discovering that they got all of the information so the US could use that information to use it. He gets really upset and he disappears again. At this point, Cheryl calls Mercedes. She's like, I've brought Jack back. And they're like, great, can you put him on the phone? She's like, no, he's a spoon again at the moment, sorry. They're like, okay, well, bring him back. We'll bring some clothes over and talk to him and we'll try and get him to stay. And she's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to bring him back while you guys are here, because they meaning Mercedes, had led her to believe that the only way she could bring him back was through intimacy with the spoon. And then they're just like, oh no, it's fine, we'll just bring some ice cream and you just eat some ice cream and think about how much you like the ice cream and then he'll come back. And she's like, you couldn't have told me this before? They do that. Jack's a bit more like calm once he sees Hugh, because obviously it's someone he recognises. Hugh's turning into a bit of a dick, honestly. I'm not loving him as much in this story. I can't believe I care enough to have opinions about characters in this. But anyway, yeah, he's suddenly being all like, Cheryl, you need to be strong for Jack. He's clearly bonded to you, so you just need to stay and be with him. And she's like, well, what if he doesn't want that? What if I don't want that? He's like, there's the lives of the whole unit resting on you helping Jack bring the rest of them back with me. He's just being a bit intense. Anyway, Jack seems really sweet and he's like, don't put that on her, it's fine. But he does decide to stay with Cheryl. They kind of have a little talk. There's a lot of flirting, but they ultimately decide they're going to try and get to know each other a bit, be friends, and she's going to take him for a drive so that she can like show him 2024 and how different it is from 1940. So that's where we're at the moment. He's back, hopefully to stay, and they're becoming friends. So she really fancies him and he really fancies her. And I'm like 64% of the way through. So I don't anticipate they'll stay friends for too long. I was right, 4% later. They're very clearly not just friends anymore. Also, random detail. Obviously, they don't realize they need to use seatbelts in cars. It was a whole thing when Hugh had to use a seatbelt in the first one, which I didn't mention because it wasn't really relevant, but like, he had a really weird take about it. Like, he was going on about how everyone cares so much about safety now, and everyone has to wear helmets, and everyone has to wear seatbelts. And he fought for freedom, not for the government to babysit everyone. And I was just like, okay, Hugh, calm the fuck down. It's just a seatbelt. Jack does not have that reaction to being told he needs to wear a seatbelt. But his reaction is that the belt is too small. I don't think he's that big. Like, it keeps going on that he's like a beefy man and he's like closer to 7 foot than 6 foot. I don't think you're that big that a seatbelt wouldn't fit you. Anyway, that was just a random aside. They're about to get very familiar with each other. Again, with the just like emotional flip-flopping of this book. She's crying because there was the whole thing where she got drugged. He like is like, there's someone hurting you, and it reminds her of it, and she realizes she never really let herself feel anything about it, so she's crying. And then she says like, I ever feel like there are two versions of you. Sometimes I feel strong, independent, and free. And sometimes I'm scared and alone. And then Jack's response is, hey, it's okay. I get it. I might look calm on the outside, but I don't want to be a spoon again. I don't know if I can control that. In the context of our world, very real problem that she has. And he's just like, hey, I might turn into a spoon again. And we're nearly done with Spoon. I'm like 86% through. There was quite a sweet moment. Jack and Cheryl wake up together the next morning and basically explains how much of a dick his dad was and how he's still quite sad about like leaving everyone behind. So they go on like Ancestry essentially and look up all his family and everything. They find out his dad was killed during the war and Jack doesn't really care about that. His brother went on to get married and have kids and grandkids, and the grandkids are still alive. And he also finds out that the guy Farley, who was his like stand-in dad, he married his mom after his actual dad died. So he was really happy about that. And that was genuinely quite sweet. And then the next morning he slips out before she wakes up because it seems like he's gonna go kill the man that drugged her. He's just decided he needs to do that, which fair enough, mate. Go for it. He decides to get Hugh's help, and I'm really beginning to not like Hugh. He is not very Steve Rogers, honestly, in my opinion. No, he's not supposed to be, but anyway, he goes to ask Hugh for advice because Hugh's been obviously like human form again and out of his cutlery form for longer, so he's like, Hugh will know how to track someone down. And Hugh's like, I don't agree with what you're doing. You are not a judge, jury, and executioner. I won't allow this. Jack is like, allow it. You can't tell me what to do. You're not in charge anymore. You're either with me or you're not. So then very quickly he was like, yeah, fine, I guess I'm with you. Mercedes also gets pulled into it. They don't tell her what they're doing, but she's like, yeah, I'll drive you there. Sure, whatever. They also have a bit of a talk about like just generally what's going on with them and like why they all got turned into cutlery. Hugh is basically saying like, our main priority should be just getting the rest of the unit out of the cutlery thing. We just need to get them back, which I'm assuming would mean just finding women for all of them, which is just insane. But anyway, he's like, we just need to get the unit back and get them settled in on life here so they can just be happy. And Jack's like, what the fuck? No, we need to find out who did this to us and check they're not still doing it to people now. Like, is Project Inkwell still happening? We need to like find that out and get some justice here. And he was like, no, I just care about Mercedes too much. I don't really care. He's basically saying like his feelings for her have only got stronger the longer he's been there, and it's probably gonna happen to Jack too. They were also then talking about who the next person is they're gonna get out. My suspicion is it's gonna be Ray. Ray is kind of angry in all the flashback scenes. He wasn't super prevalent in the first book, but Jack has talked about him more, and given how much he's talked about him, I'm assuming he's going to be the knife in the next one. It's going to be Ashley as the woman, and she wants someone like sharp, but then it kind of makes sense. I don't think Hugh wants to bring Ray out though, but Jack thinks that Ray knows something. But right now they're about to go kill someone, so that's where we're at. Cheryl thinks she's worked out how they change back and forth in terms of like a biochemistry level. I don't understand the conversation she had with Ashley about it because I did not study biology. She's about to explain it to Hugh and Mercedes, I think, and Jack. And because they're not biologists, I'm hoping she'll explain it in a simpler way that I will understand. They're all having dinner together, right? So that she can explain this. Also, I'm pretty sure they killed the guy. They didn't show us that, but he has to change before he goes back to Cheryl's because he doesn't want to show her bloodstains on his shirt. So he hasn't told her she's doing that. I don't think he's going to. They get back, they're gonna have dinner so Cheryl can explain what she thinks she's found out, right? But there's this weird thing developing. The men don't want the women to use any other utensils. They're like getting jealous over utensils that don't have super soldiers in them, just regular eating utensils. Because Mercedes says like, we're an all plastic house. So, like, metal silverware she can't use, because Hugh is like, and I appreciate that. Jack is being like, instead of just having the evening enjoying her, I have to watch her eat things with her mouth on another utensil. This whole series is stupid and silly, but I fear that might be a bridge too far for me. I'm getting jealous over cutlery that doesn't even have men in. What a dramatic ending. Okay, so I hadn't really mentioned this, but Jack gets quite paranoid when he finds out like everything is filmed now. Like there's CCTV everywhere. Everyone films everything just generally in day-to-day life. And also Cheryl says like your phone is probably listening to you as you speak. When he goes to kill the dude who drugged her, he doesn't take his phone. He makes sure Hugh doesn't take his phone, so it's all like hush hush, you know. But after they come back from that, there's a black SUV parked hovering outside Cheryl's. It drives off as soon as Jack notices, but he's like, that's suspicious. Then, right, end of the book, Cheryl gets a call from Ashley, and Ashley says she went over to Mercedes and Mercedes showed her silverware and just told her to like see if any of them like called to her. She picks up a knife and she's like, I thought she was crazy and like everything you told me was crazy, but like I'm so attached to this knife and I'm pretty sure it thinks it's mine. Previously, we just only learnt this before, like literally like a page beforehand. Cheryl had overheard a conversation between Jack and Hugh where they were trying to decide which guy would be the next one they'd try and free. Hugh wanted it to be Edward, the really clever one, and Jack had initially wanted it to be Ray, but then he was like, do you know what? I think you're right. It probably shouldn't be Ray. He was angry, quite unstable. He might be dangerous. And Hugh thinks that Ray had something to do with them all being turned into cutlery. They're like, okay, yeah, let's not choose Ray. He'll be the last one that we free. They clearly did not communicate this to Mercedes because she's just let Ashley pick out any old thing. She picks the knife, which then Cheryl's like, did it have marks all over it? Because remember, their scars on their body transfer to them as cutlery. Ray is heavily scarred. It seems like his father was very abusive, and that was the reason. We've only just discovered he was in a wheelchair before he signed up to the super soldier program, and that was the reason why, was because his dad was so abusive. So he's got a lot of scars. And Ashley's like, yeah, it does have a load of marks on it. And Cheryl's like, shit. So she tells Ashley not to do anything with the knife because she told her all about the intimacy shit. She's not told her about Jack or anything that's happened since. She'd only, right at the beginning when I mentioned it, she'd only mentioned it then. And she's like, don't do anything with that knife. Leave it in your apartment. Go for a walk. I will come to you. Cheryl tells Jack this. He is planning to come with her. She drives out and the SUV is following her. And she's like, Jack, I think I'm being followed. I thought they were talking face to face, but I'm actually not sure if they were over the phone. phone. Anyway, she's like, Jack, I think I'm being followed. And he's like, right, don't go to Ashley, just keep driving, we'll come and get you. So we don't know who's in this SUV or who's found out. Is it someone from the government? Who knows? Ashley's got Ray, Cheryl's being followed. What's gonna happen? That was the end. Also, we did not get a simpler explanation of what she thinks happening. It's something to do with dopamine and how it interacts with testosterone. That's how they switch between cutlery and human, but I didn't quite understand what she was talking about. It is 11:15. I do want to start reading Knifed right now. My sleep's been actually good for the first time in like years recently, so I don't want to mess that up too much. So I will start it and see how far I get into it, because I can't just leave tonight on a cliffhanger like this. I can't believe I'm so invested in a fucking romance series where the love interests are cutlery. Let's look at the overview for Knife. Let me get that out. Being under the knife has never felt so good. He wasn't supposed to come back yet. No one is ready for him. He's nothing to lose, no one he trusts, and revenge on his mind. Not exactly the insta boyfriend you were promised he would be. Ashley took the knife home as a joke, but there's nothing funny about her attraction to an angry and possibly homicidal Utensil. Maybe some knives deserve to be left in the drawer. His lack of memory of the events that led to his unit being trapped in silverware isn't cutting it. Ray is the reason your mother always told you to be careful with knives. Play with him and he might hurt you without even meaning to. But when danger starts circling and you need protection, it's wiser to reach for a knife than a spoon. Cautionary. The humor in this novella is sharp, not for the thin-skinned. Please be aware that all of the scenes are fictional and should not be tried at home. Not even my editor would act them out to check for feasibility. Extreme care should be employed when considering viewing a knife as a potential mate. That is the worst blurb out of any of them. I have no idea what this book is about. I just felt like a lot of sentences that did not make sense being together as a paragraph. We're starting straight off with Ray's point of view, where it seems like he is aware he's a knife, but then again also not aware he's a knife. We don't have a time date for this, so we don't know if this is current or past. Ray can turn back at will, or he seems to have done it by himself, but he doesn't realize he did it himself. We want no update on the SUV. I don't know what happened with that or who that was. I'm hoping we'll find out later. Cheryl, Hugh, Mercedes, and Jack managed to get to Ashley in the place they were going to meet up. Greg was also there, but it's not really relevant. He left. They explained to Ashley what's going on, but when they get back to her apartment where she'd left the knife, Ray has transformed. He is confused. He's clearly got like missing parts of his memory. So the last thing he remembers is going for a drink with the director of their unit, Director Falcon. That's the last thing he remembers. He doesn't remember the award dinner thing. He thinks it's still the 40s, obviously. He doesn't know what's happened. He just wakes up in her office, in her apartment, overhears Jack and Hugh talking when they come back in, assumes they're gonna kill him, and then just fights them. He tries to kill both of them, but luckily Ashley manages to distract him by just unbuttoning her shirt. And then he's fine. They're able to subdue him. He's not healing properly, potentially. He's also got a fever, which they shouldn't have. So they think maybe someone put something in his drink. But I've just realised that doesn't make sense, because that's the last thing he remembers. So yeah, they think maybe he was drugged 80 years ago. And because he's been a knife that whole time, maybe it's still in his system, but they don't really know what's going on. He's just very angry, but he immediately trusts Ashley. He really likes her. They've put him to bed because he's clearly not well, and I'm hoping he understands things a little bit better when he comes around. Good morning. I do have work today, but I don't have to work until like 12, and it's like just a bit past 9 at the moment, so I do have some time to read, but I'm gonna get ready and get out of the way now, so I can just sit down and read literally until I start work. So I thought while I'm doing that, I'll just update you on what happened in what we on Knifed before I went to bed, because I don't think I did update you. Fun little story before we do that. I was in the shower this morning and a spider decided to drop itself down from the ceiling and land on my face while I was in the shower. I didn't know it was there until it was on my face. I'm not the kind of person that's particularly scared of spiders generally. I don't really care about them. But when I'm in the shower in my most vulnerable and a spider lands on my face, yeah, that wasn't a fun time. I didn't enjoy that. So, knives. I don't remember what I last said or what had happened last time. They just had the fight. Maybe Ray wasn't healing properly. So yeah, he then really is not doing well. He's not healing properly as he should. He's also got fever, which they shouldn't be able to get sick. So he should not have a fever. And they're all quite concerned, but obviously they can't take him to a hospital because if they did any kind of test, they would know he's been like genetically altered. Luckily, Ashley's mum is a doctor and she trusts her to be able to call her and explain what's going on without her mum telling anyone. So they get her to come over. Meanwhile, her and Ray just seem to have this like instant connection. They're getting on pretty well. They don't seem to be going through all the confusion that everyone else is going through. Maybe because now we're on like, you know, the third round of this, so there's enough proof for people to just believe it straight away, what's happening. So Ashley's mum comes over. They're like, we don't really know what's wrong with him. We think maybe he was given some drugs, but we don't know what they were. She looks him over and is like, he needs to go to hospital. He is not well. They then explain why he can't go to hospital. Ashley's mum clearly thinks all of them are just either high or they're like playing a prank on her. And she's like, this isn't funny. I have like real patients I need to see. I think he's passed out at this point, by the way, as well. But she's like, no, seriously, we can't take him to hospital. Ashley's mom shouts at her and clearly this shouting triggers something for Ray and he turns back into a knife. Ashley's mom is like, what the fuck? She then thinks it's just a magic trick. Jack turns into a spoon as if to be like, look, we can prove all of this. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? They're then also saying like, we could show you our enhanced healing so you believe us. Eventually she does believe them, but I don't really know. I don't remember how they get her to believe them. She takes some blood from... I'm getting confused. There's too many super soldiers here. What, Ray, she takes some blood from him and she says she'll go do some tests on it and come back. And to just keep him as a knife in the meantime because he's really unwell and while he's in his knife form, I suppose it won't get worse. Unfortunately, Ray can come back whenever he wants. And they're like, mate, you need to turn back into a knife because you're not well and we don't know what's wrong with you or what's happening and we're trying to figure it out. He doesn't want to turn back into a knife. They're trying to convince him to. Eventually, Hugh says something really mean to him to convince him to turn back. He's like, no one wants you here. This is all fake. Obviously, no one wants you here. And then he gets so depressed that he turns back into a knife. Then Ashley's mum comes back. She's like, I'm not really sure what's wrong with him, but this is the best bet. We're just going to give him so many antibiotics and either it'll cure him or he'll die. He then doesn't want to turn back into a man. So Ashley has to like hold him as a knife and like try and encourage him to come back. Then also the other two guys also have to hold him as a knife and they all just have like basically a little pep talk for him as a knife and then he comes back. They give him the antibiotics. He seems to be doing quite well. That's where I left it. He's doing really well. He's either just fine or something's about to go terribly wrong. Also, there was a moment where, even though he's a human, Ashley, while holding his hand, is still like saying things in her mind and he can hear her, which none of the others have been able to do. And then also, she holds her mum's hand as well, and her mum can hear both his and Ashley's thoughts. I don't really know what's going on. There's not been any more talk of what triggers them to turn back and forth. Well, there was a little bit of a mention on it because they feel like whatever drugs he was given is probably like heightened that, and that's maybe why he can just turn back by himself because whatever drug they gave him did something to his dopamine. I don't really know. I don't understand. I think that's all that happened. Anyway, I should definitely be able to finish knifed before I start work, because I think I only had like maybe an hour left of it when I went to sleep last night. Also, very briefly, I forgot because it was only mentioned so briefly. The person that was following Cheryl at the end of the last book, we still don't know who that was. She says that someone was following her, and then as soon as they realized that she knew, they drove off. I don't really know what's going on with the plot here. You can't drop 2 Marvel character names in a paragraph and expect this not to read as this is just Captain America, but their cutlery. Nothing interesting has happened in terms of the plot. As with all of these cutlery men, it seems like when they first turn into humans, they care about finding out what happened with Project Inkwell. And then as soon as they start spending time with the women who freed them, they just don't care anymore. What that means from a story point of view is that the plot just never developed. Ashley's mum is going to do some more blood tests. She took blood from all of the super soldiers and also all of the women to compare things, and also to see if them being with the super soldiers is changing their genetics at all. Also, completely forgot to mention, Ashley works in robotics, and something that she said was relevant, but again, it's something to do with the dopamine stuff that I don't understand. She'd like coded the robots that she works with to feel things. It sounded similar to how they trained the super soldiers, maybe. Also, they've discovered all of them can hear each other's thoughts. For some reason, it was just a lot easier for Ashley and Ray. Like, they could just do it immediately, whereas the others then had to test it after that and realized they also could, but they're not as good at it as Ashley and Ray. They can just 100% like hear each other's thoughts. They showed each other all of their memories, so there was like no getting to know you portion because they just did it by showing them their memories. So now they're just like in love already. Like literally the same day they met, they were just like, yeah, we're just in love now, we're just together. Ashley is, I'm realizing, quite strange. All of these women are quite strange. I think Cheryl is potentially the most normal. Ashley works in robotics, but she specifically just takes all the robots that are like supposed to be scrapped, and she's just got all of these old ones that are kind of creepy and weird. Like it said, one of them looks like a spider, one of them looks like a centipede, one of them is kind of human-esque, but it has like 3 arms and 4 legs, and she makes clothes for all of them and programs them to feel things. It's basically advanced AI. She brings Ray into her work, bearing in mind this is a man from the 40s who only that day probably would have been explained how to use the internet. She introduces him to all of her robots, and it's just really strange. He's just sat talking to them as if they're children, and they all have their own little personalities. One of them's too shy because he tried to edit his own code and it gave himself anxiety, so he's just hiding under the table and refuses to speak to Ray. But she's had to step out to speak to her boss, so he's just telling them stories about what his childhood was like, which is where he mentioned his dog Bucky and someone called Mr. Parker. So yeah, we're not in the plot anymore. I don't know what's happening. He's just looking after her robot children at the moment. The robots helped Ray work out how to like turn into a fork and into a human at will. He tells them everything. The shy little robot who wasn't speaking comes out and is like, yeah, you can just do that whenever you want. It doesn't have to be through intimacy. And he's like, what? No, I can't. The others couldn't do it, so why would I be able to? And basically they work out that all he has to do to turn back into a fork is to want to leave and go back to that place, and then he can turn back into a human just by thinking of Ashley. They're super happy about that. Ashley came in to find her robots crawling all over him, and was really happy that he made friends with her robot. There's maybe been some suggestion of how they initially got turned into cutlery. It's still just a working theory. They're not like 100% sure how they got turned, but Ashley thinks she knows potentially how it might have happened from their previous research when way back in book 1 when Mercedes got them researching it. From the research I did on what I thought were far-fetched rumors, our government was dabbling in anti-gravity and electromagnetism There we go. Experimentation. One source suggested they discovered a way to unite the power of both into a laser beam that had the ability to make people and things disappear without a trace. It's a working theory that makes sense, but instead of killing them, it somehow bonded them to objects near them. They were at an award dinner, they bonded to cutlery. So maybe it was a mistake that they all got turned into cutlery. Maybe they just wanted to kill them all, and maybe the government don't know that they then all got turned into cutlery. I'm not really sure, or if it was deliberate. I get the sense we probably won't find out in this book because there's not much left of it. Maybe there's some plot development here. I think whoever's following them has caught up with them finally. They've gone for a little walk along the river. They were gonna go to get some food, see some music. They get out of the car. Reluctantly, I release her and cross over to the door to let her out. We're standing there looking into each other's eyes when the hair on the back of my neck rises and I turn my head slowly to assess the situation. A man in a dark suit is standing directly to my right. He has a gun pointed at me. Is it the government? Who is it? They're from the mafia, from the sounds of it. I don't understand what's happening. So maybe they are the people that have been following them. They've like taken notice of what's happening, especially because fucking, what's his name? Jack decided to do that illegal fighting thing and then just knocked out every single person who worked for the guy who was organising all of them. Wait, sorry, no, it wasn't Jack who did the fighting. It was Hugh. And it is him. Wait, either it's him or it's the guy he stopped from harassing that woman. It's someone that Hugh's met before. I'm not 100% sure who. God, we're having a this isn't you moment. Wait, they can just see inside anyone's mind? Not just the people they're linked to. Obviously, we kind of knew that because he heard Ashley's mum's thoughts. But this guy, she's trying to convince him not to kill the last guy standing, who I think is the one who harassed the woman that Hugh stopped. And he is just seeing his memories of his whole life. So he can read anyone's mind? Okay, actually managed to convince him to be a nice guy. He didn't kill this man. I don't think he was actually the guy who was harassing the woman. I don't really know who this man is. I think maybe he's connected to the fighting club. For some reason, they're being nice and they're securing him a new identity so he can leave because he was sucked into a life of crime and he doesn't want to, and I actually feel sorry for him. Yeah, the this isn't you moment worked. We have an update on who was following them. Ashley and what's his name, Ray, wake up after they've decided to help that guy that tried to kill them. Ray's had a phone call from Hugh. They go over. Mercedes opens the door and she's like, everyone's in here. She lists everyone and is like, and the man who was following us. Apparently, he's one of the 12 remaining men from their unit. He was also trapped in silverware. So he's managed to free himself? I thought they counted out all the cutlery and counted out the right number. So is there an extra one in there? What? Mercedes is like, yeah, he was one of the 12 remaining men from their unit. He was also trapped in silverware. And immediately, Ashley is like, Super Soldier Edward? How did you know it was Edward? Why have you guessed that immediately? And why did you say Super Soldier Edward? Why wasn't he with the rest? Did he spontaneously wake? No, Director Falcon brought him back a month after they were made into utensils. I don't understand. How? Why? Edward was a dessert spoon. The director must have been drawn to him. You know how it goes once that connection is made. Oh. So it doesn't have to be a woman. What? Director Falcon brought him back a month after they were made into utensils. Which would mean that he's aged normally. So he's like 100. Because they were all like in their 20s when they joined the super soldier thing. But if he was brought back immediately, he's like an old man now. Oh, Edward hasn't aged. So Director Falcon felt guilty about the part he played in attempting to erase the unit. So I don't think they know that everyone was turned into silverware. I think they thought they were just killing them. He felt guilty, so he took the silverware after the event because he wanted something to remember the men by. He couldn't leave it behind. I bet Edward was calling to him even then. He must have then found out they'd been turned into silverware. It must have gone wrong, whatever they were trying to do. And this Falcon guy, felt guilty and then just kept them as like a little memento to remember them by. But then he accidentally woke Edward. Edward hasn't aged. He'd thought he would, but he hasn't. So they all just say the same age. And then Director Falcon, I keep nearly saying Director Fury, is dead. Not naturally. He became obsessed with making sure Project Inkwell ended with the war, and that got him killed. He made Edward promise to keep the silverware safe if he didn't return. What? I knew there was something about Greg. He became obsessed with making sure Project Inkwell ended after the war. That got him killed. He made Edward promise to keep the silverware safe if he didn't return. So Edward had the silverware all this time? No. He was afraid someone would come for him too, so he gave the box to Hugh's mother to keep safe. She gave it to one of her sons. His children needed money, so they sold it. Edward bought it and gave it to his great nephew, Greg. Wait, Greg is in our Greg? Mercedes' hair bounces as she nods vigorously. Small world, right? We have a super sleuth spy in our mix, making sure we were the right fit for the silverware. What? I knew there was something about him. I haven't really mentioned him because he's not a big part of the story. Like, we don't see Greg very often. He was like looking over the silverware when he came over to Mercedes in the first book. He seemed pretty chill about the whole thing when Cheryl told him. Did Cheryl tell him everything? Or maybe Ashley told him at the beginning of this book, and he didn't seem that concerned. Ray just automatically doesn't like him, but he doesn't know why. None of the super soldiers like him. There was just something about Greg, even though he seemed really sweet and nice. I thought he was going to be the guy that was following them, or that he was actually like part of the government. So I was wrong, but we're also at 92%, by the way, so I don't really know what's going to happen from here. Also, her cat is getting like more and more, Mercedes' cat is getting more and more angry with everyone. He's always been a very grumpy cat, but he's getting more aggressive towards the women as well, which makes me think their genetics or their DNA or whatever is changing from being with the super soldiers, and that's going to be how it's like, oh, so they're not going to age now either. That's my guess. Knifed is finished. What happened at the end? Edward is there. Greg is also there, but Greg doesn't say anything. But Edward is there, and he is basically saying, yeah, he got woken up. He's been trying to find the right time to wake the rest of them up when it's safe, and it hasn't felt safe, but now it does. He wants to get all of them back and try and just basically what Hugh's been saying, make sure they have good lives. He's also been developing a serum to reverse what was done to them, but he's not sure if it'll actually work or if it'll kill them. So Ashley calls her mum to come over because obviously she's a doctor, so maybe she could look at the serum and see what it would help or what it wouldn't, or they could like collaborate together to work on a serum. Guys are initially annoyed about this because Edward's just been like, you know, known all of this and just left them trapped as cutlery. Ray very much is wanting to go after the government because they think there's still some iteration of Project Inkwell going on now, and they want to try and stop that happening. But Edward's like, I don't think we can take down the whole government. I think we just need to try and make like us happy. He also says he's been investing a load of money under a shell corporation, and the Shell Corporation is, the name of it is an acronym of something they used to say to each other all the time, which was like, brothers together, always dying together, or something. That's not it, but I can't be bothered to go back and find it. So they're like, oh, you named your Shell Corporation after us. They all hug, they're all friends now. Then Ray takes him aside and is like, look, Falcon woke you up, but you clearly had a relationship with him, so maybe he's told you some stuff. I don't remember the dinner. All I remember is having a drink with him and then waking up after being a fork for 80 years. No, after being a knife for 80 years. Do you know what happened? Was I part of what happened? And he was. He was the one that did it. So they gave him some kind of drug. They knew he was susceptible to it because of how much he'd struggled with not using it beforehand. Like, I don't know how much I mentioned this, I can't remember. They were all given those drugs to enhance their focus and stop them sleeping when they were in the super soldier program, and they all realized that it was kind of driving them mad, and it also made them more susceptible to following orders. They would just do whatever. So they all slyly stopped taking them, but the people in charge knew that Ray had taken them longer than anyone else, and he was like more inclined to be easily influenced by them. So they did slip that into his drink when he saw Director Falcon, but he like tried to fight against it. They were able to control him enough for him to like use the device that was supposed to kill them all, but because half of him was still fighting against it, he didn't actually do it properly somehow. I don't really know how, because it sounds like it was just a device they had and it was just a button he had to press. But somehow because he was fighting against the drugs they gave him, he didn't 100% do what they wanted him to do. And that's how they all became cutlery instead of dying. So if it wasn't for Ray, they would have all died. He obviously still feels really guilty about it because of his involvement. But Edward is like, if it wasn't for you, we'd all be dead. You fought against it. The rest of us probably wouldn't have been able to do that. And if they hadn't picked you, they would have just picked someone else to do it. So, like, don't feel guilty. You saved us all, basically, by turning us into cutlery. But he doesn't tell anyone else that. He's like, I don't think it would help anything. People would just be angry at you. Like, the rest of the unit would just be angry at you for doing it. So don't tell anyone. I just felt like you should know, because you might remember at some point and it's not fair to lie to you. Then they just hear a shout from the other room. Ashley's mum has turned up. Fucking Mercedes. Mercedes just getting involved when she doesn't need to and just giving people cutlery willy-nilly. She shows Ashley's mum, Lauren, all the cutlery. She just fucking picks up 3 of them. She's like, well, I didn't believe anything would really happen. I thought maybe one of them would warm to my touch, but all 3 of them did. So she's woke 3 more of the super soldiers and they've all bonded to her. And Ashley's like, Mum, this is ridiculous. You can't do that. They're like 25 and you're 40. You can't have all of these super soldiers. But she's already bonded to the cutlery. So she's like, no, I don't want to give it back. It's mine now. And Ray is just like, your mum's had a hard life. Just let her have this. So the next book, Serviced, is going to be from Ashley's mum's point of view. I didn't know who the next main character was going to be, but I would not have guessed it was her. Let's look at the blurb for Serviced. I believe this is the last book, even though that would be what now, 7 of them that have woken up. So there's still, how many was there in total? 12. So there's still 5 that they need to wake up in the course of this book as well. Utensils are for more than stirring up trouble. Lauren gave up on love a long time ago. As an ER doctor, she saves lives daily and keeps her own life safe and predictable until a set of antique silverware warms to her touch. Suddenly, Lauren finds herself the unexpected heroine in a reverse harem. How do you say that? Harem? Harem? I don't know how to pronounce that word, but you know what I mean. Surrounded by 8 World War II super soldiers who are as tempting as they are chaotic. So does she just wake up all of them? What the fuck? Okay. Falling in love with sentient spoons, forks, and knives. It's absurd, testosterone-charged mayhem, and yet love always finds a way. This isn't your typical sentient object romance. Expect rom-com hilarity, Marvel-level action, and a poignant love story wrapped in a quirky utensil fantasy universe. Cautionary warning. Utensil dynamics are highly unconventional. There's a battle brewing that can only be resolved with the elimination of Inkwell. There will be violence and heartbreak, but justice will finally be served. So this must be the last book, surely. If all 8 of them are being woken up and justice will be served, then this is the last book in the series, right? Surely. So I'm looking forward to seeing the conclusion. I do start work in 20 minutes. So I might just read like the first couple of chapters, probably read some on my lunch break, and then hoping we can just finish most of this today. It's nearly 9 o'clock. I finished work like an hour ago, and then I had to eat, and then I also had to take this guy out, which is why he's going crazy right now, because we've literally just got back in, so he's having his post-walk crazy. I did read some of Serviced this morning, and I did read a little bit on my lunch break. I'm about 20% in. I'm 19% through, if we want to be super specific. Not really much has happened so far, which is unsurprising, really, in these books. But, the fucking robots are back. I get that these robots are supposed to be, like, cute. I just find that whole storyline quite annoying. Our main girl is Ashley's mum, right? Lauren. So far we've seen her at her job. She's a emergency doctor. She's taking some holiday from work to try and sort out this deal with the super soldiers. She still wants to try and do some testing. She's just got them in her house. She's refusing to touch them. She doesn't want to wake them in the way everyone else woke theirs. So she's trying to like approach this from a science point of view. And Cheryl has a lab in her house. I don't remember that being mentioned before, but she has a lab in her house. So she's like testing all the blood of all of the super soldiers in Cheryl's house. There's also this guy that I'm assuming is going to be relevant. Maybe not. I don't know. What's his name? Brenton or something? He's like one of the donors in the hospital that she works in. He clearly fancies her. She's not really interested in him, but he's like being quite flirty with her, and he called her and was like, why are you taking time off? You never take time off. Is everything okay? And I can't tell if he's genuinely concerned or if he's just doesn't understand boundaries. But anyway, he's there. So you know how Edward had like invested all this money, so he was really rich. He's given Ray enough money for Ray to be able to buy out Ashley's company so she can keep all her robots and no one will ever find out about them and destroy them. But like the process for that is slow, and for some reason the robots are no longer safe in the company. I don't really know why. That part wasn't explained. So she has 4 of them at her apartment with her and Ray. There's too many for them to all fit, so she's brought the other 4. Well, she's asking her mum, Lauren, if she can look after the other 4. I don't really remember the characters of any of these robots. One of them, George, is obsessed with sex. Like, obsessed. Like, I think he's supposed to have the personality of, like, a teenage boy. But he has boundary problems. And there's John. I don't know who John is. I don't know if he's the one who was shy to begin with. It's not really important. Those 2 talk. They're there. And basically it's like Lauren's gonna have to be their mum because they essentially act like children but they're robots. There's 2 that are scared and won't say anything. And they just scuttle around. They're really small. They're like little spiders and they're just hiding somewhere in her house. So she now has 4 robots in her house and 3 super soldiers who are still stuck in their cutlery form. That is where we are at 20% through. I'm very, very tired. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this book today. I think this is going to be the one that is finally too much for me. I forgot to mention, we've also met one of the super soldiers. He's a spoon this time. He doesn't have many marks on him, so he clearly doesn't have many scars. We've met him in a flashback. He had ulcerative colitis. That's why he wasn't allowed to join the military, and that's why he joined the super soldier program. He kind of didn't like Ray, but kind of did. We see Hugh just being a dick again. I really don't like Hugh anymore. That's all we really know about him. His name's Pete. Oh, she picked him up. She picked the spoon up, and then she felt really guilty and put it back down and said sorry and then walked out. And now we've got another a chapter from Pete, but current day. So Pete's woken up. He was in his dormant spoon state. Where's she gone? Why isn't she here anymore? I can tell she's sad and I need to help her. He doesn't think I can. She doesn't think she deserves love, but I can help her. And because he wants to be with her, he wakes himself up like Ray has learned how to do. I forgot to mention, next to all their sleeping bags that she'd put the utensils in, she also left envelopes with their name on, which had instructions in it as to how to watch a video on a tablet she'd left, and she'd made a presentation for them to explain everything in case they woke up when she wasn't there. So he reads the letter and is like, I can feel that she is here, so I'm not gonna watch it. And he just goes to find her. She's just reading in bed, and he's obviously attracted to her because of the weird utensil bond thing that happens. She's like, did you watch the video? No, what are you talking about? I left you directions. And he's like, I read the letter, but I just came to find you instead. He also then says she's beautiful, and she says, thank you, but everything you're feeling right now isn't real. It's a condition brought on by what happened to you at the award dinner. You need to watch the video, it'll answer all your questions. To which he just says, I doubt it'll answer this one, and then just kisses her. You've never met before. You just woke up from being a spoon. This is a random lady's house you're in. What the fuck are you doing? I understand that this bond must be incredibly strong, right? I do, because we've seen it happen 3 times over now. But still, mate, calm down. She told you to watch the video. Watch the fucking video. I don't know, mate. I don't know. It's crazy. Okay, one thing I don't understand, right, was there was a whole big thing of Cheryl being like, if this is just a chemical reaction, then I want to try and free Jack from it because I don't want him to just be trapped with me. I don't want him to feel like he has to be with me when actually it wouldn't be his choice, right? There was a whole conclusion in the last book that was like, it's not that. All love is a chemical reaction. So you're probably fine and you guys do actually love each other. Everything Lauren is saying is that the bond isn't real. Whatever happens when someone touches them as a utensil is a strange chemical reaction that happens because of either their transformation or because of the serum they were given and stuff. And it can be confused with an emotional connection or sexual attraction, but it's not real. She's very set on that, but I thought we just resolved in the last book that they do all actually love each other. So she's trying to find a solution to it. Are they all just gonna stop loving the women who woke them up as soon as she's reversed whatever was done to them? Or is she just wrong and they do actually bond? I'm confused. It's very contradictory. Okay, so far, I hate this man. What's his name? Pete. He's like, before you call Hugh, I just have a question. Oh no, I have a request. This is a lot to take in. Can I have a hug? To which she responds, like, I know you're probably feeling a lot right now, but did you not listen to what I just said? Nothing's gonna happen between us. You don't actually like me. It's not a good idea for us to do that. And he's like, it's just a hug. To which she then continues to say no, and then he just lifts her up, puts her in his lap, hugs her, and just says, you need this as much as I do. I really dislike this man. Also, unrelated to that, we have found out who the other two cutlery are. The fork is Franklin. I don't remember any of these men being mentioned in. They would have been mentioned in Hugh's original flashbacks, but I don't remember any of them. They were there like barely, super quickly. But anyway, apparently Franklin is a charmer who puts up an act instead of letting someone in. And she said the fork feels smooth. So that's what she was able to get from him. And then we have Elliot, who is a knife. He's angry, very angry and hurt, disappointed in both Inkwell and himself, but not the dangerous way Ray can be. She feels just as connected to them as she does to this dick, which he's like, I don't like the idea of her with another man, but I respect her honesty. I hate this man. I hope she does not stay bonded to him. I dislike him. I had not read the next bit, and now I hate him even more. He's like, hugged her, right? She sits there, stiff as a board, but I don't release her. Against her hair, I murmur, just a hug. We haven't known each other long enough for you to trust me, but I have to believe you can sense that you're safe with me. I'll never hurt you. You're a part of me. Yeah, 'cause nothing would convince a woman to trust a man more than pulling her into your lap, forcing her to hug you when she doesn't want to, and telling her that she wants it just as much as you do. Fuck off, Pete. I know I said I didn't like the robots. And I didn't like this whole storyline. I still don't. However, Pete got up in the morning, the robots were there. He wasn't answering any of their questions. He was being quite rude to them because he thought they worked for Inkwell. I'll give him that. George, the one who acts like a teenage boy, he wears a purple cowboy hat, by the way. He was just asking him a load of questions and Pete was just like, is there a way to turn you off? Obviously, George got quite upset about that because he's sentient and he flew towards him and Pete just fucking whacked him so he fell on the floor. And now I don't like these robots. However, it made me sad. And now I hate Pete even more. Oh, also, then, you know that guy, is his name, I don't think his name's Brenton. I think his name might be Braxton. But that seems even less like a name, so I'm just gonna keep calling him Brenton. Called Lauren. And her and Pete have like shared all their memories and stuff now because apparently that's like super easy to do. I don't know why this didn't happen in the first two books with either of those couples, but anyway, she answers the phone. Brenton is in Ireland. He's just telling her that he's lonely. Fuck. fucking Pete is like, who's that? Oh, it's just a work friend. Are you sure? Stop blocking me out. So she lets him see all her memories of Brenton. He's like, he's clearly in love with you. And she's like, no, he's not. I think he probably is. But anyway, fucking Brenton is like, I'm not gonna choose you right now. You need to break this bond because I don't want to be with you just because you're too scared to choose him. She never said she wanted to be with you in the first place. She's been saying repeatedly she's trying to break the bond. None of the others were this bad. All of the others were quite respectful up until the point the woman also wanted them. Don't like him. I don't like him. Also, Franklin's just woken up as well. I don't know how he woke up, but he's now here. So we'll see what he's like. So I don't remember where I updated you last night. I was very, very tired last night. I did not read very much, and I'm still very tired today. I am now halfway through. Serviced though. I'm hoping we will be finally finished today. I think this is the book that is officially too much for me, mainly because there are just so many characters to keep track of at this point. I think the last time I updated you I was just moaning about Pete. Still do not like him. I don't like him at all. For some reason he seems to be the one that Lauren's bonded to the most, probably because he woke up first. Where I am right now, the other two soldiers have woken up. So let me recap you, right? Pete woke up. She was supposed to call Hugh as soon as he woke up. She did not. He did the whole just hug me thing, and then they shared all their memories with each other. Then I can't remember if I told you this or not. Brenton called. Oh, I did, because I was moaning about Pete. She actually had quite a nice conversation with Brenton, and he definitely does seem like he's in love with her. And she's kind of just been either telling herself it's just friendship or is genuinely not interested. Or maybe she is interested, but she just wasn't allowing herself to be. And she basically was trying to, like, have a bit more of a real conversation with him. And she was like, I'm helping some of my daughter's friends. They've all been in, like, a really difficult situation. So I've let some of them stay with me for a while. Do you know of anywhere, like, bigger that I could stay that would also have access to a lab? Remember, she's a doctor. He knows her in a work capacity, so I'm assuming that's not really too weird of a question for him. He's like, do you know what actually I do? I own a campground that also has loads of outbuildings and a big house there that my family use for the holiday, but it's not summer, so you can use that. He's an island at the moment, so they know he's not going to interrupt. So basically she's like, that's perfect. We can have all of the soldiers and all of the robots there, and there'll be a lab so her and Cheryl can test all the blood. She's just had that phone conversation. She puts the phone down, and then another soldier walks through the door. This is Franklin. Franklin did serve in the armed forces during World War II, but he was discharged after losing one of his legs. He returns home in our little flashback that we get. He returns home to his sweetheart, whose name I don't remember. It's maybe Sophie or something. He's so excited to go see her, and she's found another man because she thought Franklin was dead because he stopped replying to letters. His whole character thing is now, because of that, he just treats women like shit and as if they're like not real people, and he just like, he's a one night stand kind of that guy. He doesn't do emotional attachment because one woman hurt him once. Obviously there's still the whole bond thing, so he's like, Lauren, you're so attractive, I really like you, and she's like trying to explain to him this is all fate. She then goes in his mind, because that's really easy for all of them to do now, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? You in my head? I don't like that. He gets really angry, says he doesn't want to stay there anymore, and then walks out. He doesn't walk out of the house because he says he'll wait for Hugh to get there, but he is not happy with this whole bonding situation. Elliot also wakes up. This is our last guy. He had a polio, then joined Inkwell, and so far really doesn't have much of a personality. I don't know anything about him. Once they're all woken up, that's when Hugh and the others come over. They explain everything. They say they're going to go stay at this campground so they can test and let the guys choose whether they want to, well, let these three guys choose whether they actually like Lauren or not. She seems to be having some conflicting feelings about whether she likes Brenton or not. There is too many men. Oh, also, so there's obviously still some soldiers trapped in cutlery. Decided for some reason the safest thing to do is to let Lauren wake all of those up and let them all bond to her too. They're like, it's better you do it because you don't want anything from them. You don't have any like negative intentions with them, and yeah, you're not expecting anything from them, so it's safer for you to do it, who understands, who knows, who'll be able to do the right thing, than it is for them to get into the wrong hands and have someone wake them up who would have bad intentions. We don't even know how to break this bond yet. Lauren has theories that she might be able to do it, but she doesn't actually know if she can, so that seems a bit impulsive and rash to decide that's the best option. 2, who else is going to wake them up? The cutlery is in your possession at all times. Who else is going to wake them up? I know there's the thing of like, well, someone could find out and do it. Right now, that's not likely. Why are we rushing into waking up all of these other guys when we have no idea if she's able to break that bond or not? But anyway, that's where we are at the moment. I've just seen our next chapter is from Brenton's point of view. I am locking in for the night. I don't have any other plans. I am finishing this tonight, so I'm done with this series. But yeah, the point of view of Brenton, whatever. He's talking to his brother and his nephews and nieces. Sure. Lauren calls. Lauren's like, hey, we got here, how you doing? Everything's going fine. And then she kind of asks him out, but doesn't really ask him out. He says he'll come visit her when he's done with his trip in Ireland. She then is like, there's some stuff you need to know before you come back, but I can't tell you over the phone and it might be dangerous. So then he just decides to fly back the next day. So now he's there with both of his brothers. And I'm already bored of the very masculine, gross man energy of them all being like, she's mine, not yours. I'll punch you. I'll fight you for her. Shut up. You were all fucking cutlery a few minutes ago. All of the other soldiers are now awake. You're gonna take blood samples and try and find a way to cure the bonds. Meanwhile, Brenton and his brothers are there, and all of the other super soldier men are not happy that Brenton is there and doesn't like him, because he also likes Lauren. Like 75% through now. We're nearly done, and God am I grateful. Here's the thing, okay? I started reading this series because I wanted something silly. I wanted men being turned into cutlery and turning back. I wanted super soldiers who also happen to be cutlery. I do not care about Brenton and Lauren. Don't give a shit. They're not cutlery. That's what I signed up for. They're together now. They discovered that it was the bond that the soldiers have to the women is because of the drugs they were given beforehand, like the mind controlling drugs, which is interesting because all of them said they'd stopped taking them apart from Ray. So I don't really understand how they were still under the effect of them. But anyway, it's because of those drugs that they form that bond, and once they're out of their system, they're fine and there will be no more bond. So it's already out of Ray, Jack and Hugh's systems, so the feelings that they feel for their women is real. The rest of them, the bond should like be done in about a week, so they're just waiting for that to be the case. The way they found this out, they found like the drug and they'd never heard of it. So one of the robots managed to find out what it was, and one of the robots also managed to find out that Project Inkwell still exists and they are still doing tests on men now. They're not looking at like a serum in the same way they were before. Now they're looking at trying to combine humans with technology, and every time the super soldiers become too sentient and start thinking for themselves rather than being controlled, they just kill them all. Now all the soldiers want to go after Project Inkwell and try and bring it down. Brenton's brothers have left, and they're waiting for the bond to be done, and then they're gonna try and take down the government, I guess. So they have a plan to take down Inkwell, right? Which for some reason Brenton decided all of the men needed to discuss together without the women. I don't really know why, but anyway, I don't think I mentioned, but Brenton is like really rich, and his business partner is even more rich and powerful, so I'm just gonna assume his business partner is like Tony Stark, basically. The plan is for them to get him on side so that he can try and like fake that he's gonna make a deal with the people running Inkwell, and then all of the other super soldiers are just gonna come in and kill them. That's the plan, right? I'm assuming it is gonna work because we've only got 20% left of the book. So they have that conversation, and then Ray, I can't tell if Ray might be my favourite. He comes up to Brenton afterwards and it's just like, hey, cuts his arm like vertically this way, which is the most dangerous way to cut your arm, just so you know. Don't do that. Then cuts his own arm, like smushes them together so that there's blood transfer, then cuts his hand and just shoves it in Brenton's mouth, and then is like, you needed super soldier powers, but as far as we can tell, it's transferred by bodily fluid, and I'm not gonna have sex with you, so this was the only way I could think to do it. Doesn't tell him that he's gonna do that, just does it. So Brenton now is maybe got super soldier powers. I don't know if they're always gonna be there or not, if there needs to be continual body fluid transfer for that to remain. No idea, but he's like stronger at the moment. Also, I completely forgot to mention this because honestly I don't care about Brenton at all, but he used to be a firefighter. He went on a job once and there was like an explosion or something, and his entire chest or like torso area got 3rd-degree burns, and he had to have a load of skin grafts and stuff, and it was like a whole thing that he didn't want Lauren to see his chest because of all of his scars. He'd just got over that. He'd let her see them because he's had the super soldier blood. They're all just magically healed, which I think's just a bit rubbish. I don't like him. I don't care about his storyline. That was a big important breakthrough, and now it's just like, oh, he's gone now. He's fine. Just seems, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. They decided on that plan, right? They've also still decided not to tell any of the women, even though basically from what I can understand, all of the women are essentially super soldiers now as well because of the exchange of body fluids, but they're still like, no, we must protect the women, can't tell them anything. So we then got a point of view from the Tony Stark man, and now we're getting a point of view from some Inkwell people. So I'm assuming the plan got set in motion because 2 scientists at the Inkwell thing, they like have gathered them all together under the guise of the Tony Stark guy basically investing in them so they can expand their operation and hopefully be more successful in creating super soldiers. So they're at this like dinner, and 2 Inkwell scientists are having a conversation, and one of them picks up a fork and like looks at it. So my guess, and I hope this is right, is that the soldiers have snuck in their cutlery forms. And that's how they've managed to get in, and that's how they'll surprise everyone, is just by popping up and being like, haha, surprise, we were the cutlery. And then just kill everyone. That's my guess. That's what I think is gonna happen. They have the fucking cutlery. He picks it up, he looks at the piece of silverware. The other scientist wrinkles her nose in disgust. It's scratched. They couldn't have gone with something more modern. That's one of the fucking super soldiers, and that's his scars that you can see. They could have gotten better looking silverware. They're all transforming. There's a flash of energy from the knife and she drops it to the ground. All around the room there are bursts of energy. Cold chill settles over Valerie, who's the scientist, when she sees men in vintage military uniforms popping up all over the room. Someone asks what's happening. I don't know, but I have a feeling we're not gonna like it. What the fuck? I've finished it, right? The most excited I have been in this book. The time we actually get to see the cutlery super soldiers again. That scene doesn't exist. They just didn't write it. There's the bit of them all poofing into soldiers. We don't see the resolution to that. They don't even fucking mention it. I'm assuming they killed everyone and Inkwell is no more, but they do not mention it. They're just all happy on a private island celebrating Christmas. Lauren and what's his name? Brenton, at their campground thing with all of his family and Ray and Ashley. Have I given you Ashley's backstory? Her dad didn't want them. Left Lauren when Lauren decided she didn't want to be a stay-at-home mum. She wanted to be a doctor. And he then went on, had a new family, and when Ashley contacted him years later, he was like, I don't want to even acknowledge that you exist. Please don't tell my new family that you and Brian, who is her twin brother, exist. So then there's like what's I suppose supposed to be a really heartwarming scene at the end that I really didn't care about, where Ryan and Ashley come up to Brenton, who has just proposed to Lauren, and they're like, we want to call you dad. And he's like, okay. And then the last chapter, the last scene, Tony Stark man comes to the island where all of the soldiers and their women are celebrating Christmas. He's like, I helped you, we'll look after you, we'll make sure no one takes advantage of you, but if you decide to use your powers for bad, I will step in. So he basically comes and threatens them all. Then he leaves, gets on his private jet, and 2 of the robots, they're like really scared. They didn't say anything. They didn't have a personality. They want to be turned off because they're too scared of everything, but no one will turn them off because they feel bad about it. They're just in his private jet, and he's like, you can stay with me and be my children's friends. I'll give you a voice. You can pick your names. It's okay to be scared. shared, and they agree, and that's it. That's the end. It's this random man who is apparently, there's a whole other series about him being a billionaire, which I do not give a shit about and I won't be reading. The end is some random character who comes in the last, like, maybe third of the book, one chapter from him, and then he is the last scene in the book. We didn't even see all the super soldiers being super soldiers. They were the focus of this series. What a disappointing ending. This was the worst book. The first three were silly, fun, stupid times. This one was not. There was no cutlery men, and the cutlery men was what was silly and what was enjoyable. This was just a normal man who was quite annoying. That is everything that happens in the light-hearted Utensil romance series. I hope you enjoyed. I am glad to be done with this series, but I had a better time than I was expecting to. I'm now gonna go and read something very, very far away from this to refresh. That is all I have for you today. So I hope wherever you are having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.